Hello everybody, I'm Catriona Morten. I'm a sensory-motor psychotherapist, and today I'd like to talk to you about trauma bonding and disorganised attachment and what that looks like and how it's formed. But before I get into that, if you're enjoying these videos, then please give us a like, subscribe to our channel, because it really helps us get our message out there to loads more of you. And just another reminder, we now have a members only area. If you go onto our profile, click join, we are going to be putting out on a monthly basis loads of different content, longer videos and just a load of different stuff that you won't be able to see on here. So I look forward to seeing you there. So trauma bonding, disorganised attachment. This is something that I think is very misunderstood. I realised this when I was working as a social worker, that the children's behaviours, the things that were going on, made no logical sense until you looked through the eyes of a trauma bond. We have to form an attachment. We have to bond with our carer. It's part of our survival mechanism and it's essential. So no matter what the circumstances are, we will find a way of forming an attachment, a way of keeping us safe, a way of getting some of our needs met. Now, if our carers are very volatile, abusive, which a lot of my clients unfortunately have had very abusive upbringings, not all the time sometimes, but even if there's just a period of time that it's been really frightening, very dangerous, violent, abusive, then we learn how to form a trauma bond. And trauma bonds often, unless you are really looking at it through the lens of survival and attachment, won't seem to make any sense. And what I meant by when I was working as a social worker, what we would see then is, obviously sometimes unfortunately, we would have to go to court and remove children from their homes and put them into foster care, or if they were very little, they would get adopted. And long processes and, a lot of assessments made and, the best interests of the children and really getting the dynamics of what's going on in the house and why. But the thing that was very, very missed and misunderstood often was the attachment. And these children will have formed a trauma bond with the parents. It's not always in violent households that it looks like this, but it often does. That the way that we can keep ourselves safest, because the main priority in a situation like that is safety. We are absolutely hardwired to be safe, for obvious reasons, but it starts really young. We have a really inherent sense of what makes us feel safe and what isn't. And often, a trauma bond will be that these children, these people will learn how to be close, in close proximity, and be regulated. And it makes a lot of sense in some ways. There's a saying for a good reason: keep your friends close and your enemies closer. The trauma bond, that ability to attach to someone, to be regulated and to be functional when this person is actually volatile and potentially dangerous, it means that we've got a much better chance of second guessing, seeing what's coming, reading the room, maybe getting a little bit of a heads up of what could be coming next. These children will learn to spot very subtle signs, the things just before the switch happens. They're really, really hyper vigilant. They miss nothing, but they're very laser focused on certain parts of that vigilance, watching for changes, listening for things. They just pick up on things all the time so that they're best prepared to either flee or hide or freeze or whatever it is that is the best strategy for them in these very, very volatile, potentially dangerous situations. And so when we would remove these children from these violent, dangerous homes, often the thing that they would do is escape and run home. They would be like homing pigeons. They would just want to be home, because when they could see what was happening, and they knew how to function in this, and it made them feel way more regulated. Being apart meant they didn't know what was going on. They don't know if something's coming at them, even although logically this person isn't coming for them anymore because they might be miles away. But it's that sense in the body, that way of behaving. It really dysregulates, and it's very, very triggering for a trauma bonded person to be apart, to have distance from the person that logically, the social workers would be like, oh, they're in a lovely foster home, they're in a lovely place, it's safe, it's warm, and they've got everything they need. Why on earth would they want to go back? Without understanding the power and the pull of a trauma bond, because it's survival. It's like something that just compels them. Often children who have very, very volatile homes, they have very poor attendance at school because it's very unnerving. They don't know what's going on. And so they'll either skip school or they'll feign an illness in order to get back home so that at least they can see what's coming. This became very apparent when there was a phase of time, I think it was 70s, 80s, that there was a lot of hostage taking, that groups of terrorists would take a body of people hostage and bargain for what they wanted. And there was a real spate of this, and what the people who were negotiating with the hostage takers noticed was this really bizarre thing, that the hostages would become fiercely loyal and sometimes thwart attempts at rescue. And it was called Stockholm Syndrome because of the person came from Stockholm that actually did all the understanding and the psychology on this. And it's a survival mechanism. It's the way that we trauma bond. If we can stay close, form any kind of relationship, we stand a better chance of survival, and we stand a much better chance of second guessing and having a heads up as to what might be coming next. And so that ability to be in proximity to someone and be functional and regulated it's massively adaptive. And we don't just stop doing that when, we leave home, things are better, and we get into a situation that's not violent or dangerous. Often that can be very unnerving for someone with a trauma bond. They don't know how to react and respond. They'll often really poke people to get that response. It's like, okay, I knew it was coming, so I'm going to make it happen anyway. Now I'm in control again. It's not really a conscious thing. It's an unconscious behaviour based on kind of recreating what you had and the only way that you know to feel safe. A lot of people who have early volatile childhoods and upbringings, they'll often find themselves in relationships that are volatile, abusive, and it can be one after another. Why am I attracted to people like that? And the thing is with attachment, unless we understand that that's the kind of attachment we are capable of forming, then we think we're choosing, but we're not. It's not because we want to be in these relationships, it's because we're drawn to it. It's so familiar. We humans, we love familiarity, whether it's good familiarity or negative familiarity. We're really familiar with it. We know how to operate in these situations. There's almost a sense of being in control, even although, the situation might be very dangerous and look on the outside very out of control. People with a trauma bond, they actually know how to function, and they are drawn because attachment pulls us. Behaviour first, head, oh my God, what's going on, second. And so if we know that we've had either pockets of this when growing up or that's been predominant, have a little look at, have I formed a trauma bond? Do I have a trauma bond with this? Do I feel more uneasy when I've got distance than when I've got proximity? Am I drawn to people that are very volatile, unpredictable, angry, a bit violent? Then it could be that that's your trauma bond pulling you into these often very damaging relationships. Again, with any kind of attachment wound, attachment style, the heads up, the information, the understanding of what on earth is going on can really help unravel a lot of things and start to make sense of things that make no sense until we looked at it through an attachment point of view. And it was working as a social worker that really set there's something else going on here. It's attachment. And I was just very, very lucky to have some amazing people around that were, looking, researching, doing trainings and conferences about attachments. Like, ping, the penny would drop. It's like, oh my God, that's what's going on for these children that I'm working with. And again, when you can look out of what would the world have looked like through these children's eyes, what sense are they making of things? How are their behaviours adapted to this very particular environment? That can be very revealing as to what's playing itself out. Because trauma either goes totally avoidant, so some people will be like, I can't be around anybody that even is a bit grumpy, let alone angry. They'll have an absolute aversion to it, or people that are drawn and will recreate it, but not knowing why. When we can understand that that's how we've had to be able to be, we've had to be able to be regulated in close proximity. When we're separated, we're dysregulated. And so it makes perfect sense. It's like, well, this is all happening in the body. How can we regulate ourselves? Number one. Number two, really starting to understand what might be going on and what pokes those little triggered parts of us. How we can work on having distance, having space, and not feeling really, really dysregulated, needing to message people all the time, check out where they are, because that could be misconstrued as being very controlling, very needy, very jealous, a lot of things, whereas actual fact, it could just be about safety. And so the more we can learn when we're dysregulated, what's actually happening in our body, what does it feel like, what does it look like, what helps us regulate. And it's different for everybody. Trying some little experiments, learning to observe what's actually going on, what's my body telling me, because it's behaviour first. This is going to come way more from the body than from the head. Yes, the head is brilliant at helping to make sense of what on earth is going on, but it's the body where all the action is. And if there's an impulse, it's the body that's going to go with the impulse. And so the more that we can learn to listen in, tune in, be mindful, be curious, feeling, noticing, observing, then we've got a much better chance of knowing what regulates us. And when we can start recognizing, whoa, I'm getting a bit dysregulated, instead of going to the other person to regulate me, I can do this for myself. It gives us way more bodily autonomy, control, confidence. We're not so dependent and needy on other people. It really helps us have a bit more kind of freedom and a bit more control over ourselves. And that's really vital if we want to live a confident, vibrant life, the one that we want, not the one that we're just hooked into with someone else. So I hope that makes sense, helps you make sense of things, and I hope it's helpful and useful. And if you've enjoyed this video, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon, and hopefully in the members area too. Okay, bye.